planning webinar. My name is Thea Saar, and I am the Director of Communications and Programs for DiscoverE. And joining me today is Anthony Marino from Lockheed Martin and Marc Escobar from ASCE, and I'm going to ask each of them to take a moment and introduce themselves. Anthony.
Thank you, Thea, and thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it. Welcome again to everyone that's online today. Glad to have you. Thea pointed out, I do work for Lockheed Martin. I've had the great pleasure of working for Lockheed for the last 13 years. It's been a great way to not only have an enriching career, but also the company has been very good at promoting and enabling us to be great advocates of our profession. So again, it's programs like this and I'm really passionate about, and love to use this platform. Through my career, I've also branched out into other endeavors, sitting on various boards and councils. And everywhere I go, I always use those platforms, again, to be an advocate for the engineering profession. So again, it's great to be here today, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you, Thea.
Thanks, Anthony. Marc, can you tell us a few words about yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Marc Escobar, and I am a civil engineer with Michael Baker International here in Dallas, Texas. I've been with Michael Baker for about 5 years, and I love engineering, but another one of my passions is outreach, community service, and I've been involved with the American Society of Civil Engineers for about 7 years now. I've served as a K-12 chair for my local chapter, and I currently serve as vice chair for ASC's National E-Week Committee, where we really work in developing and providing resources for our members during E-Week. And I'm really excited to kind of give some information about what I do and answer any questions that anyone might have today.
Terrific. All right. So you've heard a little bit about us, and now we would like to know a little bit about you. Ellen is going to pull up a poll for you all to take, launch that poll, and we'll quickly find out if you're a teacher educator, an engineer, an engineering undergrad, a STEM professional, or other. We'd love to know who we're talking to. And as the results come in, we're at 80% have voted. Oh, look, everyone is paying attention. This is fabulous. All right. So Ellen, can you share the results? Oh, here we are. So 22% of us are teacher educators. We have a good showing of engineers and STEM professionals, and then other. If those of you who aren't included in these categories, if you would just, in the question area, just tell us a little bit more about you. We always like to know a little bit more about the folks we're chatting with, and also so we can expand our poll for next year. All right, let's close that poll and move on to our next slide. I will advance to the next slide. So DiscoverE, who is DiscoverE? Well, we like to say we're the E in STEM. We really concentrate on engineering, on engaging students in engineering and celebrating engineering. And we support educators and volunteers to connect with one another, to educate young kids out there about, and their families, about engineering, and to celebrate the profession, and really to lend, kind of have engineering come out from underneath the shadow of science and math, which we know sometimes happens. So every year through our programs, we reach over 6 million students and their parents through 50,000 volunteers and educators. So thank you all for all of the hard work you're doing to make engineering come alive for students around the world. We're not just based in the US, but Engineers Week and our programs have expanded internationally as well. So without further ado, what we know a lot of you come for is what is the Engineers Week theme? Well, the 2019 Engineers Week theme, as you can see on your screen, is Engineers Invent Amazing. And we're really excited about this theme. It has a lot of play for all of us to talk not only about the field and to celebrate all the amazing engineers that you know and work with, but also to break a lot of stereotypes for students and for their families about what's involved in engineering. Today's webinar is really going to concentrate on Engineers Week and offer ideas and resources for you all on how to celebrate engineers and how to engage students in engineering. So if at any point you have questions, you want to know more, please put it in the question box and we'll get to it. And if you want to know about Girl Day or some of our other programs, we're going to have lots of great webinars for our other programs later in the year. So, celebrating Engineers Week and celebrating engineers, one of the easiest things you can do is to go social. Sharing a photo, posting messages, all kinds of great stuff. The most important takeaway is to know our hashtag is eWeek2019, and our tag at discovere.org will get you across Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. We got it all covered there. But we would love, no matter what you're doing during Engineers Week or year-round, to just be sharing photos and encouraging folks to celebrate engineering. Another easy way is you can just celebrate the Engineers Week, oops-a-daisy, so the Engineers Week poster. If you have awards at your workplace or in your engineering society, nominate someone. Secure a public proclamation. We know that a lot of college campuses and organizations host events and they bring in special speakers. Last year, there was a college in Texas that brought in one of the women, the original women from Hidden Figures. She was 94 and gave a rousing presentation to the group. You can organize a friendly competition. One of our partners, Floor, every year challenges their engineers around the world to do an engineering competition. There's tons of Engineers Week lunches and dinners. And I think the easiest thing is to just tell people, hey, it's Engineers Week, celebrate with us. So I'm going to ask Isamar, how do you celebrate Engineers Week?
Yes, so I really enjoy Engineers Week because not only is it a time, I think, for us engineers to celebrate our own professions, but for me, what I really enjoy doing is celebrating by educating the public. So one thing that I like to do is during E-Week or the week before or week after, I try to do some sort of community service because for me, by using my knowledge and the work that I do to help others is a way for me to celebrate and educate those I'm working with on what engineering does to impact their lives. Another great thing I like to do is some sort of presentation. It can be something big or it can be something small at a school, whether it be a child's, my own family, schools, or someone I know. Just do a quick presentation on the type of work that engineers do that help communities, like Bridges to Prosperity, that builds bridges for communities that are isolated from the rest of their resources, and Engineers Without Borders, that has a huge impact on helping other countries that need access to clean water and things like that. So those are just a few things that I like to do during E-Week to help celebrate our profession.
Celebrate and doing good, right? Inventing amazing, right there. Anthony, what about you? How do you celebrate the engineering field? And what's in that picture that I see there?
Sure. Good segue. And I guess I'll piggyback on some of Isamar's comments, right? She talked about educating the public. And I think when we talk about, outside of our outreach efforts, but what else are we doing to celebrate engineers in our profession? And your previous slide or two slides prior mentioned securing public or securing proclamations. So you mentioned that picture. That is a proclamation from last year that I secured from our local county level. And over the last, I would say, last 5 years, I've been able to secure multiple proclamations from our state legislature as well as our county leaders as well. So they've been very supportive. Each year, I seem to reach out to a different representative. I don't want to keep going back to the well of the same representatives that we have in our legislature. I want to see multiple folks bring that awareness to the public. And also, I find it funny, you talked about social media, and I'll sheepishly admit that I'm I am like the opposite of social media. I let my wife do that stuff. But I've written letters to the editor for newspaper. Are newspapers still a thing anymore? I'm not even sure. Maybe I'm starting to date myself here, but those are a couple of ways I've done in the past to kind of celebrate our profession and bring awareness leading up to Engineers Week. Again, to let the public know that, the engineers, like you mentioned, we're usually hidden behind the scientists. Everyone thinks of that first. Engineers are doing good things, great things, and to bring that awareness and celebrate our achievements.
That's terrific. Anthony, how hard is it to get a proclamation? When you said you go after, a variety of representatives each year.
That's a great question. When I first went about doing it, I had that, perception. I was like, they're not going to answer my call. They're not going to answer my email. And surprisingly, I've had zero pushback. They are more than happy to accommodate. They like the press as well. And they realize, right? And I've used the resources from the DiscoverE website. So the proclamations, I've used the template that's available online that is provided by DiscoverE. And so when I reach out to the representatives, I've already given them a template, right? So I've kind of taken the guesswork out of it, and it just makes their job that much easier to be able to push it through in time for Engineers Week.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, and Anthony, that was a great segue to our next slide. To do any of the ideas we outlined in celebrating, we have all kinds of resources on discovere.org. We have copyright-free photos that you can use. We have the annual theme and a description of that theme in Engineers Week landing page. We have our poster and the artwork. We also have ads. Over here, you can see this ad. It's a downloadable ad you can take and post in your newsletters or on your intranet sites. We have logos that you can use. All of these are free and available for you to use in whatever outreach you're doing to celebrate Engineers Week and to celebrate engineering. And of course, what would Engineers Week be without the volunteer kits? We have a kit for Engineers Week and for Girl Day. We have posters, we have bookmarks, we have new activities, 2 great new activities. And you can download a print copy. You can order your print copy. There's only a $2 shipping and handling fee. Or you can download the copyright-free artwork. And the only reason we charge $2 is we got put on a bot a couple of years ago and got overwhelmed when the kit was completely free. So that's our anti-bot system for the $2 there. So I'm going to get into now engaging students. And we've organized this next section to, how much time do you have? A lot of times people are, think that they need a whole day or a much longer engagement to work wonders with kids. But we found, 5 minutes, you can change the trajectory of a child's life. So we suggest if you have 5 minutes, talk to children about engineering, share what engineers do, and really focus on how it helps society. Check yourself for jargon. Make sure that you're not using your, your PE initials, or you're talking about how to become an engineer, but mostly just what engineers do. And Anthony, I'm going to turn it back to you. If you only have a short time to chat, what do you emphasize with kids?
Yes, I think the thing I'd like to kind of always come back to, especially in a small time frame, is I always ask them, what are some of the big issues that you see that are surrounding you today, right? And the top ones that come to mind and are always in the news and that we're always exposed to is obviously environmental issues, global warming, cybersecurity, right? How many news reports do you see of big companies getting hacked and credit card information getting stolen? And obviously, you know, the big field of medicine, right? There's always going to be these diseases that we need to overcome. And I try to bring it back to, like, listen, you know, you may not think it now, but you're at the forefront, right? It's going to be average people like you and me that are going to go pursue STEM engineering careers that are going to be someday become the next generation of engineers, and you're going to have a chance to make an impact in those real world issues that are impacting you today. You can kind of help solve them. And to me, that really kind of crystallizes it, and they can obviously, right, it's tangible. They've seen the news, they've heard the news, and have that connection, like, hey, I can make that impact. To me, really kind of seals the deal for me.
Whoops, I was on mute. Isamar, I'm going to ask you the same question. If you only have a short time to chat, what do you emphasize?
Yeah, so I, along with what Anthony said, I really like to emphasize the impact of the work that we do. And I, you know, try to kind of show them on their daily lives. So I'll usually ask, you know, for my type of work, civil engineering, I'll ask the kids, you know, do you know where the water that you use to brush your teeth came from, or to shower? You know, with the type of work that engineers do, a lot of people can't see it usually, or you don't realize that you're using it. So I really like to point that out. You know, things like, do they know how the roads that the bus used to get them to school today were built? Things like that. I really like to emphasize the fact that the work that we do impacts their daily lives in ways that they never really realized or noticed. So that's kind of something that I really like to emphasize if I have a short time to chat with them.
Great. Good advice, Isamar and Anthony. And if you're wondering, okay, how do I really share engineering with students? I'm not really sure what to say, you know, that was quick and fast. Well, we have some resources. In the control panel, you can download a document called 5 Powerful Messages to Share with Girls About Engineering. This was created for Girl Day, but we happen to know that talking about curiosity, creativity, teamwork, opportunities, and helping others, that works with boys as well as girls. And we also have additional resources on discovery.org. In our online training area, there's an online self-guided tutorial on effectively talking to kids about engineering. It takes about 30 minutes maybe to go through that. It's a good reminder on what to say and how to say it. And then in our Discover section of the website are the 10 reasons to love engineering. And sometimes refamiliarizing yourself with those 10 reasons gives you kind of like, hey, yeah, I like that about my job, but also gives you some quick and easy things to talk to kids about. So again, you can download that 5 Powerful Messages PDF right from this webinar, or you can go to discovery.org and get those additional resources. So next, 1 hour. You got more than 5 minutes, you got a whole hour. What can you do in an hour? And what we recommend is if you're an engineer or a technician, visit a classroom or after school. If you're an educator, invite an engineer or a technical professional into your classroom and ask them to do a short, introduce themselves, talk about, do that 5 minutes about what is engineering, that quick overview, and then do a hands-on engineering activity with the students. We recommend that you look for activities that follow the engineering design process, so you can really kind of talk to them that you're doing things the way engineers are doing things, by asking those big questions and designing and building and really exploring engineering. And it's a great way to get kids engaged. So Anthony, I understand that you visit, you do hands-on activities every year in your schools, in your area. Can you share how you got started and how that's grown?
Oh, of course, I'd love to. So I guess I'll first say, this volunteer and advocating and this outreach that I do was not something that was always in me. Through college, I wasn't actively involved in the student orgs so that wasn't cultivated then. It wasn't until first couple years out of school and in the workplace that, still really wasn't in me. All right. It was, so obviously the inspiration, maybe others have had this, I had a son and I realized, hey, I want to be able to help shape curriculum, help shape the environment that the school system that he's going to be in. And so I guess maybe when he was around 2, I had attended a board meeting for my local district, and there was a teacher there from the Gifted and Talented program that was presenting some engineering work that her class was involved with in a competition. And I was like, that is just really amazing. I can't believe, I want to help nurture that. And so I made the connection with that teacher and kind of gave her some of my background. Hey, I'm an engineer with Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin works on a lot of cool things. I'd love to come to class if you're open to it, if you would welcome that. Talk about some of the things that we're working on at Lockheed Martin from an engineering perspective. If there's time, I'd love to do hands-on activity. A lot of the things that we do here at Lockheed are obviously like missile defense. So maybe we could do something with the fizzy bottle rockets. Again, I think that's another resource that's available on the DiscoverE webpage for download, and the kids just loved it. But it was having that conversation with the teacher, letting them know your background, what do you bring to the table, how can you help, how does it fit into the current curriculum, and having that open conversation to kind of shape what you think that presentation, what that hour-long session is going to be. So from there, we did the first year that we started this back in 2009. I think we did it for an entire group of third graders within the district. Maybe that was a total of 100 students. It went great. And of course, every time out, lessons learned, you kind of fix things along the way. And word of mouth, it's gone from, every year we target schools in the district, but, we've also done Boy Scouts, been invited to Society of Women Engineers, WOW engineering events in other districts. So it's really kind of grown. And I think we'll talk more about that a little bit later and how I've kind of included others into this to be able to reach more and more students. But, again, at first I didn't know if I had anything to offer, and maybe I was a little hesitant to even ask. But again, the experiences that I've had reaching out to educators, especially when you're providing it to them at a volunteer nature, no expense to the district, and you can help create enriching experiences for our students, volunteers will come to find that educators are very welcome and will gladly welcome you into their classrooms to offer this.
Great, terrific. Thank you, Anthony. Kind of just making that connection with that teacher. And Isamar, I understand that you and your local ASE chapter do a lot of classroom visits. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. So in my case, we have, ASE has over 150,000 members all over the U.S. And in our local chapter, we get a lot of members who have kids in school or they know teachers who are looking for presenters. And so they'll reach out to us and we offer our services to come present in their classroom. And it's really nice when you have an hour because you can, the way we usually set it up is, a lot of these kids have never heard about engineering or specifically civil engineering. So I love to give a quick, brief presentation on what it is exactly that we engineers do, along with Q&As, and they can answer or ask any questions they'd like, and we answer them. And then we do an activity, and that activity can be anything really. And DiscoverE has some great resources of activity ideas, as well as ASE and the Big Dream Big campaign. They have a lot of different activities you can do from all different age ranges and grades, which I think is amazing because obviously we have teachers anywhere from kindergarten through high school that are looking for presenters. And obviously an activity that might be challenging for a second grader isn't very challenging for a high schooler. So there are many different ways that we can adjust those activities. And that's where my local chapter really comes in and kind of helps create that schedule and that guideline for the teachers, where the teacher, all they have to do is, if they want a visit, we come in and we come with everything prepared, presentation, resources, materials, and all that. So that's kind of how we do our classroom visits, which I think are one of the most popular and effective ways to do outreach and educate the public, and really just educate these young kids on what engineering does, and maybe have some interest in becoming an engineer later on.
Right. That's the goal, right? Just get them interested in engineering and getting them to think about that as a potential career path. When we've talked about going into classrooms, we often hear from both educators and volunteers, oh my goodness, I don't know how to do that. How would I invite an engineer into my classroom? What are the steps? Where do I find an engineer? So in the handout section is a PDF on how to invite an engineer to your classroom, just kind of how you find one, planning their visit, what a visit might look like, and other resources you can utilize. And same for volunteers. How do you make that first approach to a classroom teacher? How do you make sure that he or she knows you're legitimate, that what you have to offer is worthwhile? So they're both there, easy for you to download. Other resources, if you're thinking about that 1 hour experience, we have over 150 activities. We add new ones each year. Design a Better Pinwheel, which is one of my favorite of our new activities, because it asks kids to do what engineers do every day. Take something that works and make it even better, and really go through that engineering design process to improve the performance. So take a simple pinwheel and make a really monster pinwheel that can do something amazing, or build a sorting machine. These are just 2 of the 150 activities we have. You can sort by grade, topic, and language. We have these in Spanish, in German, in Chinese, Arabic, and one other that I cannot remember. So if you're working internationally, or you're working with a bilingual audience, we have these activity sheets in those different languages too. You can go to DiscoverE.org and go to the activity section and see what works for you. All right, so now we've done 5 minutes, we've done an hour. How about a half a day? What can you do in a half a day? A lot. And one thing I would encourage you to do is to volunteer as a judge at a science or engineering fair, not just because this gives kids a chance to see and meet an engineer. If you live on the coast, if you live on the East Coast or you live on the West Coast, you think everyone has engineers in their lives. But that's not true. There's only 1 million or so engineers and technicians out there. So most people will never meet an engineer. Most kids will never meet an engineer. That's a great, easy, wonderful way to do it. But the flip side of that experience is you usually come away feeling really good about the next generation of kids. They're smart, they're funny, they're attentive, they've got amazing ideas. So if someone's asked you to be a judge, I'd say go for it. You'll have a great time, and you'll come away re-energized. There's all kinds of other things you can do, the typical inviting someone to shadow you, inviting students to your workplace, presenting engineering careers. For educators, the Dream Big film is still in theaters. You can go to our website. This is the film that showcases, it's a giant IMAX film, and it showcases engineers doing amazing feats of engineering and the people behind it. So it's very inspiring. If you want to organize an engineering event at your school or after school, we have lots of resources for that. Again, all of these things and ideas and resources are on discovere.org. So, Isamar, can you tell me about some of the larger outreach you've done to engage students?
Yeah, definitely. So these are really fun because, like you said, half a day is a lot more than just an hour. So some of the things that ASC does locally is we host a popsicle stick bridge competition. So we do it within 2 to 3 different cities, and we open it up to any high schools in those areas. And so what the high school students do is they, form teams of 2 to 4 people, and they have to build a bridge out of popsicle sticks. And they have to build a bridge before the day of the event. We ask them to put together a little report, kind of describing their process. And then on the day of the event, we have them present on their project. We test their bridges, and we also have them do an impromptu event, just as a fun little event. And we, create a point system, and at the end of the day, we have top 3 places on all these different categories. And it's just a great way to have these kids have fun, learn, and just really engage with them. And so it's a great large event that I've been involved in. I've also done a few STEM academies. So we work with a lot of nonprofits that host academies and ask for volunteers or engineers to come in and do a day of, engineering. So we've been invited to do that sort of stuff, and that's a lot of fun because it obviously incorporates kind of the education, but an activity in more detail. And lastly, like you mentioned, the Dream Big film has been a huge movement in the past year, and so I've hosted a large Dream Big event at a local theater where we invited other engineering chapters, everything from Society of Women Engineers to Engineers Without Borders and geotech engineers, where they each hosted an activity. We had the students rotate and kind of learn about all these different engineering fields, and then we showcased the film. So those are just a few of the larger scale that are a lot of fun if you have the time and resources and kind of get volunteers to help out. It's a great way to engage students of all ages.
Sure is. And if you're interested, here's some more resources you can use. If you're doing a career fair or you're going out and talking about being an engineer, we have a customizable deck that you can take called Discover Engineering Careers. There's videos in it where people can meet young undergrads, and it really goes through and talks about just what it's like to be an engineer. We also have educator trainings on incorporating engineering into your classroom. How do you link it to your curriculum? What's involved? What's the difference between the engineering design process and the scientific method? And we have that for middle school, elementary school, and high schools if you want to check that out. Or you want to create an engineering event at your school, after school, or at a at a museum or library. We have a step-by-step guide here on our Family Day on how to create an outreach event in your community. So these are great places to start. They're great places to touch back. You might be having done this for a while, but sometimes you're like, I just took a course on how to do adult training, and I was like, ooh, I have been forgetting that step for a while. So it's always good to kind of come back and remind yourself too. All right, so you've got your 5 minutes down, you've done your hour, you've done your half day, but now you're really ready to just kind of do multiple sessions. What can you do over a longer period of time? And I think this is really where you get into mentoring students or educators, where you form teams and you go into a larger competition like our Future City competition, or you integrate a large-scale project in your classroom or after school. The options are endless, and rather than listen to me talk, let's hear about Anthony. How are you? Can you tell us a little bit about your plans for expanding to multiple schools and multiple sessions?
Sure, Thea. So kind of to build off of what I was talking about earlier. So, that one connection I had with one teacher, 9 years ago, has formed into an annual partnership. And so, we started off where there was one grade, and then maybe the following year we focused on 2 grades. So now this most recent Engineers Week, we did a school takeover. So we did 2 full days during Engineers Week. And I've also now partnered and looped in my alma mater, Rowan University. So they have a strong engineering program. And I've recruited about a dozen engineering students to come help me in this endeavor. Obviously, total school takeover for 2 full days is a little bit more than I can handle by myself. And not only that, I've come to realize, age is not on my side anymore. And so those soon-to-be college graduates are closer in age. So the students that we're interacting with, 5th, 6th, and 7th graders, they can see themselves in those soon-to-be engineers, right? They can see, now it seems more attainable. It's not just this, here's this 40-year-old guy talking to us about engineers. No, it's kids that are relatively close to my age. They're doing these amazing things, and they're going to be changing the world, right? So now there's that spark, there's that connection. My plans for this coming year is to hopefully do simultaneous school takeovers during Engineers Week. So again, I'll be recruiting additional students to help me in this endeavor. So, hopefully, before where it was 1 school in 2 days, hopefully we could do 4 or 5 schools within the district during those two days. And again, I'm really proud of the grassroots growth that this has taken on. I mentioned it started maybe 50, 100 students that we engaged with during Engineers Week. And this past year, again, the school takeover, over the course of those 2 days, we engaged and inspired over 400 students. So, if I could just get one of those students, I'll be thrilled, right? One of those to become engineers based on what we did, that's great. And the experiences that we provided, it's competition based. This year we did like penny boat competitions. And it's amazing when you kind of put them in a little team atmosphere. You see how these students now look past their differences, can work as a team, and how excited they get over a simple activity. But they're not real, maybe it's subliminal, but they're doing the engineering process through those activities. And so we're starting to ingrain that into their way of thinking, that they could take it back to class. And again, have a little fun doing engineering. And again, hopefully the experiences that we provided them will last a lifetime.
And after Anthony and I first talked about the outreach he was doing, because he started with that one classroom in 2008, we did a little, napkin math, and 1,900 students since you started your outreach endeavors, which is amazing. The difference one person can make, and how you're, bringing in partners and really building something that can potentially last beyond you, right? If you, move or kind of keep growing this presence in your community. Next up, just a few more resources and pieces for you before we get to the questions. But if you are going to be doing outreach and doing some events, we'd love for you to post your event at DiscoverE.org. It's right here on our homepage. You can promote your event. You can learn about our other programs. You can get more resources. DiscoverE.org should be your go-to resource. For example, in our shop, these are all inexpensive giveaways, rulers, pencils, tech tattoos, and stickers, buttons you can buy. We have some really amazing t-shirts, volunteer t-shirts, and some water bottles. So definitely, when you're ordering your kit, check out some of the other resources. Anthony, I know that you order resources from the shop. How do you use them?
Yes, I always like to, I don't like to come empty-handed to these schools. So at the very least, I like to have pencils for all the students that we interact with, and in conjunction with the resources that DiscoverE provides, as well as resources I'm also able to secure from some of my other partners. Again, it's something as simple as a pencil, something to leave behind that, again, makes that connection with the students. Like, oh yeah, I remember when I got this pencil, what we were doing at that time. We're having a great time doing engineering.
Yeah. All right, I lost my mouse. Okay. So besides Engineers Week, DiscoverE offers 4 other programs. Girl Day, which is the Thursday of Engineers Week, where we really encourage folks to reach out to young girls to help them explore engineering. And if you haven't already, we'd love for you to sign up to be a Girl Day role model, and you can do that right there. On Girl Day, we have our planning guides and our Girls Night Out events, and there'll be a Girl Day webinar on November 14th. Future City. Future City is our design competition for middle school kids, where they are creating cities of the future. This year, they have to design a city that can withstand a natural disaster. Their electric grid can withstand a natural disaster and quickly recover from. So we're looking for educators to lead teams, volunteers to serve as mentors and judges. If you're not familiar with Future City, definitely say check it out at futurecity.org. Our Global Marathon. This is a series of conversations for women in engineering and technology that offers actionable career advice. Last year, we had over 2,000 women join us from over 500 companies, 165 universities from around the world. It's a free online virtual conference, and while it's aimed at women, men are invited too. We'd love to have you join us over those Wednesdays in March, so mark your calendar for that. Lastly, we have a Global Day of the Engineer, where we celebrate engineering around the world. And this year, we're going to be launching a survey asking engineers what it is that motivates them to become engineers and compare the answers from around the world, and we'll release those on April 3rd. So social media, we hope that you'll follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Our hashtag is Engineers Week 2019. If you liked this webinar, there's more. We have our Engineering in Unusual Places, and this is for you educators. If you want to bring fascinating engineers like Anthony and Isamar into your classroom to talk about what they're doing, we'll have engineers from Floor, from Northrop Grumman, and from UL talking about how they engineer in unusual places. And the Girl Day Planning webinar is on the 14th. You can register for both of those right from the homepage of our website. They're both available in those upcoming events sections. Are there any questions that people have that they'd like Anthony or Isamar to answer? We have one. And what is the age range for the Global Marathon? That is for people who are engineers, right in college or beyond. So I'd say 18 plus. Here's a great question from Hillary. How can we encourage girls in high school to participate in engineering? Isamar, would you like to address that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really the same way that we encourage any other high schoolers, but in this case, if you want young women to be encouraged to become engineers, I highly would encourage that your volunteers be young female engineers. Sometimes young girls can't imagine themselves in certain positions if they don't see people that look like them in those positions. So, obviously along with talking to them about engineering, showing them what we do, I think a big factor would be to make sure that those people telling them this and volunteering at those events are young female engineers who have gone through, similar things that they have gone through in the field. So that's kind of my big tip on that.
That's terrific. Here's a question from Leon, which I think asks, we're out of school the week of February 18th to the 22nd. Can Engineers Week be celebrated at another time? Absolutely. Engineers Week is really a state of mind and a call to action to to celebrate engineering and engage students in engineering, but it can really happen any time of the year. Someone else asked, are there examples of roadway and transportation activities that can be shared? If you check out the engineering activity section of discovery.org, you will see lots of transportation activities there. And actually, Tyler asked the question and found him there himself. Anthony and Ismar, any last minute things you want to share with our audience?
Sure, Thea. I'll take a stab here. I guess first, again, Thea, thank you again for inviting me to participate. Really enjoyed my time. For those on the line, whether you're an educator or volunteer, maybe there's some hesitation on your part. For educators, I would say, go find your local resources, like ISMAR's ASCE, and there's other engineering organizations as well that will gladly, offer engineers to go participate in some event, visit your classroom, Society of Women Engineers. Go look and try to find your local chapters, businesses in your area, reach out to them, and engineers in the profession, know that you have something to offer and you can make an impact. So if you have some time, go and volunteer, go do some outreach. All right. The only thing that's limiting this is the passions that any one of us has inside, right? So if we want to go educate and inspire, it's the only thing that's holding us back would be ourselves. So by all means, go. If you have the wherewithal, go do some outreach and go find some resources. So again, Thea, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anthony. Those are inspiring words. Isamar, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Anthony said regarding educators on the line. There are definitely local engineering chapters that have volunteers that are passionate about outreach. And remember, this is free of charge to you. So these are resources that you can get help from and not have to pay anything. And I think for the engineers on the line and for students on the line, I think as long as you're passionate about the work that you do and are excited about the work that you do, the people who are listening to what you have to say are going to feel that. And I think that's a huge motivating factor for young kids to see someone as excited about engineering as any other field out there. So I think that's a huge thing is, people can feel the passion in what you're teaching them. And I think that carries over really well to young kids.
Great. Well, thank you to both of my guests, Anthony and Isamar. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your advice today with everyone. I certainly learned a lot. And thank you for all you do to engage kids in engineering. For everyone who joined us today, thank you very much. Thank you for your interest in engineering. And if you have any questions or if you want to get in touch with us, stay in touch. You can email us at info@DiscoverE. Visit the website, discovery.org. There's tons of resources out there for you. And if you need anything specific, just let us know. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and happy planning.